It's Tuesday the 12th of April 2011. The Jason phoning on BBC Radio Wales. Jason doesn't want to deal with any local government issues. It's always something else like Pakistan or some frivolous thing like that, so we'll switch it off. And yesterday I had a reply from Cardiff County Council about my public question. The nuts and bolts of it is, as a result, I would like to ask you to please amend your proposal so that it focuses specifically on the intended question, e.g. paragraph 3 and 4 of your previous draft question, and does not include any associated statements which could result in your question being ruled out by the proper officer, meaning that it would not be considered at Council on Thursday the 14th of April. I can only advise you that any question relating to housing matters would be answered by the Executive Member for Committees Housing and Social Justice, Judith Woodman. I would be grateful if you could please return your amended question to me in writing as soon as possible, by post or by fax. And I give the fax number there, 02920872431, in order for it to be considered further by the proper officer in sufficient time before the meeting on Thursday the 14th of April. Well, I amended my public question, and I attempted to send it by that fax number at 6 o'clock last night, and it was shut. So why don't they leave their fax machines running all night, Crazy Dave? I don't know. Simple thing to do, isn't it? Get faxes during the night when there's nobody there. There's no problem. Get them in the morning, wouldn't they? So I amended the question, but I didn't just amend it so there was just paragraph 3 and 4. I amended the whole thing so each previous statement is now a question, and it's just a simple thing called language, and you have to play around with language in order to turn a statement into a question, which is very easy to do if you have the inspiration. So, hi Mike. It's Mike Davis, Clerk to the Council. Thanks for your letter dated April the 8th to the 4th. Here's my revised question. I trust that it now meets the requirements for me to ask it on the 14th of April. Full Council meeting as follows. Does this Council agree that it has failed in its duty of care to its tenants and the people of this city by not recommending that its Council tenancies be transferred to housing association ownership, given that over the last 10 years it has returned 139 million in rent monies to Whitehall? Given the above inflation rent rise for 2011 of 5.6%, can the Leader of the Council tell us what the expected figure for 2011-2012 will be in returned rents to Whitehall? I would like to take this opportunity to ask this Council to vote to recommend such a transfer of ownership for the nominal sum of £1, and that in drawing up of documents during the transfer that all tenants are given a share in the ownership of the housing association with equal voting rights as any executive member who deal in its day-to-day running. Does this Council agree that in any other business this practice of returning rent monies would be viewed as price fixing, where higher than necessary rents are the result? Will this Council ask South Wales Police to open an investigation into the legislation that allows for this rent monies to be returned to Whitehall, as it being nothing short of gaining money by deception at best, and benefit fraud at least, given that 85% of Council tenants are in receipt of housing benefit? Does this Council agree that such a transfer would mean a growth over time in the availability of more social housing at current rent levels, because all rent monies would remain in its accounts? Will this Council open an investigation as to why unelected members of this Council have not recommended such a change years ago to the elected members? And does it agree that they're not doing so as being detrimental to social housing provision within the city, given the above? During my last appearance before the full Council, I was not given the opportunity to ask my supplementary question under procedural rules. I trust that this time I will be allowed to do so. I would also like to take the opportunity to raise a point of information that I believe this Council ought to be aware of regarding committee meetings, in the hope of educating chairpersons of such meetings in the future. Yours sincerely, David Gabriel. So I got to go and try and fax this again now, and see if that fax number is indeed a real fax number, and whether it's up and running, and if not, then I have to photocopy that and then take it down to the Council building myself. Yeah. Why don't the BBC want to deal with this issue, people of Cardiff? why don't you all in Cardiff get on your Twitter and on your blogs and start demanding that your assembly or proposed assembly members who want to get a job this year in the Welsh Assembly and get paid 60 grand a year, probably they'll go for we've got more powers now, more responsibilities, we need more wages, while all the rest of you are taking cuts and getting made redundant. Losing your homes and having to live in private landlord accommodation because there's not sufficient social housing anymore, because they think it's common sense to pay a private landlord £500,000 a year to house long-term benefit claimants. That's not good for society, is it, Crazy Dave? No, it's not, sir. Not in the long term, it's not. Nice to the private landlord who's getting that £500,000 a year out of social security payments or tax money, but it's not a good investment, and it's really financial mismanagement. But nobody wants to agree with that because they say we're meeting legislative requirements. Legislative requirements? Excuse me? Whoever made those legislative requirements should have put in a clause there saying we will only do this for 6 months, after that you'll be transferred to social housing. Or they should have said we're spending all of this money on private landlords when we could be housing these people cheaper in social housing. Why don't we go to the banks and say, look, we're paying out X amount of billions per year on this, we want to borrow a few billions, buy up all these properties, or compulsory purchase them, deduct whatever the private landlords have had over time in rent payments from the total cost of the property.